When we first arrived there, it was like a scene from the apocalypse. There were hundreds of trucks arriving, full of IS supporters and their children. They got onto the desert floor with their children who were sick. Many of them had diarrhea. Many of them hadn't eaten properly in weeks. They were malnourished. And then the Kurds started processing them. Some of them just wanted out of there. They'd had enough. But others were defiant. For them, this wasn't a surrender. They'd been told to come out by the Islamic State leadership, and they viewed this as a pause more than anything else. Some of the women wouldn't speak to us. Some of them were actively hostile. On one occasion, they attacked our camera, throwing bottles, calling us kuffars, infidels, and they were defiant. "Go film the men," they scream. "We are the women of the Islamic State. God is great." And there's an interesting thing that many of them saw this as a test. They believed that God was testing them, that this surrender, this near defeat, was just another part of their horrible, terrible mission, and that they'd be back to fight again. A lot of them weren't honest about what they'd been doing inside. We met a lot of cooks, a lot of drivers, a lot of administrators, but a few of them were. They said they'd been fighters, and they were angry that the leadership of IS had abandoned them. What was also difficult was the children, particularly the Yazidi children. They'd been taken from their parents. Some never ever saw them again, enslaved by Islamic State group. And some of these kids had been trained to plant homemade bombs, roadside bombs. They were nothing to IS. They were disposable. They wouldn't use their own people to do that. Why not send a Yazidi kid instead? And those kids had forgotten their language, they'd forgotten their culture, they'd been made to convert to Islam. They're really the greatest victims of all of this. But also, the children of the Islamic State. We met women from Dagestan, Chechnya, Russia, Turkey, all sitting in the dirt with their children. A lot of blonde-haired children, blue eyes, clearly who weren't from there. All they spoke was Arabic, all they'd known was the Islamic State. We met one 12-year-old boy, Hamza, whose family had been killed. His family were all IS. He was actually Iraqi. And this kid just had no sense of where he was and what was going to happen next to him. He had nobody left in the world. And while you can judge his parents and while you can judge that hateful ideology, a lot of these kids had no choice in this, and they can't go home.